James Gailliard Show on Choice FM.
Opinion along with Justice Alina Keegan and Ketanji Brown Jackson. And this is what they said about the majority decision, that it makes a mockery of the principal foundation of our Constitution and system of government, that no man is above the law. I don't have time to do it on this show, but I was prepping for some July 4th stuff and began reading through some of the dissenting and some of the issues that the British had when they were leaving King George to come to North America. And it's astounding to me. I'm gonna go through the whole document on another show, but it's astounding to me that so much of it sounds like some of the things that Donald Trump is trying to do. And so, anyway, I thought that was interesting today. I really want to have a discussion today. And so, if you are out on Facebook, I'm going to be looking for you, and I'm going to take a moment. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. I'm going to take a moment and grab your questions because I'm just really in the mood for conversation today. But you know what the hot topic is. The hot topic. So one more time, this is James Gailliard, and you're listening to the James Gailliard Show. Go ahead and share this, if you will, on your platform. I would really appreciate this. The added note on the U.S. Supreme Court decision today is that if Trump wins the election in November, this is interesting, he could order the Justice Department to dismiss any federal cases against him. You know, a huge part of me feels like the only reason Donald Trump is even running for office is with the hope of winning so he can do exactly that and dismiss cases against us. And I want to talk, while we're talking about former President Trump, I want to also talk about President Biden, and I want to talk about the debate last week. And I want to get your opinion about the debate. I want to talk about it. I want to hear what your thoughts are. And so I want to talk about that on the show today. I also want to talk about, I didn't get opportunity to talk about the issue of the mandating of 10 commandments. And now there is a new situation where there's a mandate of teaching Bible in public schools. So I want to try to cover all of that in today's show if I get a chance. And so I want to jump in today on the debate. As you know, this past Thursday, there was a debate between the former president and our current president. A lot has been said regarding both individuals, but particularly our sitting president, Joe Biden. And I want to spend a little time on that today because I want to admit, I was one of those people kind of watching with real concern and dismay. And I've been very thoughtful and very prayerful about where am I standing on this? Where am I sitting on this? So let me say a few things about it. I want to get your feedback because hopefully you will have it. There's a lot of tentacles to this. I'll say that. I want to begin with the issue of late-term pregnancy, late-term abortion. I thought it was interesting. I went through this when I was in the General Assembly. As you know, I served 4 years in the North Carolina General Assembly, and I remember having to vote on an abortion bill, and I remember being so frustrated because the way that they were trying to put pressure on me to vote for this particular abortion bill was to try to convince me that babies literally were being ripped out of wombs at 8 and 9 months. And as you begin doing the data on it, you discover that that's indeed not the case. And for those of you that know me personally and politically, you know that I'm whole life, right? I'm what I would consider myself a whole life Dem. I really want to work hard to make sure that we create environments where every pregnancy has the opportunity to come to full term. And in order to do that, there is a whole litany of public policy things that need to happen in order to protect both the life of the mother and the life of the child and the future life of the child. Having said that, I thought it was interesting that the former President Trump doubled down on the argument from 2016. And I remember the argument so well from 2016 because I was running for office. I was kind of watching the lay of the land on things then, and it was regarding late in pregnancy abortions. And this is what former President Trump said. They will take the life of a child in the 8th month, the 9th month, and even after birth. And let's be very clear, that defies late in pregnancy abortion by definition, and that would go into the classification of murder. And I think what happens is that people try to create these emotional culture wars as a way to confuse people to get them to vote a certain way. So by definition, late in pregnancy abortion takes place at or after 21 weeks of pregnancy. And that's according to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. Less than 1% of all abortions occur at this stage of pregnancy, and more than 80% occur at or before 9 weeks of pregnancy. So I just thought it was interesting that he doubled back on that claim. And I was being interviewed by a few news outlets over the debate. And one of the things that I raised up, and hopefully some of you are paying attention and you will chime in with me as well. Good to see so many of you on so soon today. This is James Gailliard. This is the James Gailliard Show. I'm talking about the debate right now. I found myself, well, let me just finish up the abortion issue. And so it was interesting to me that former President Trump targeted former Virginia Governor Ralph Northam, making a statement that he's willing to, as we say, rip the baby out of the womb in the 9th month and kill the baby. So I just thought it was interesting that there is so much emphasis, and this is where I'm going with this. And let me put it out there. I've been struggling to say that in a minimal way with our president's debate performance. I don't think it's unfair to call it a disaster. Having said that, I do think, though, that we're not focusing in every regard where we need to have our focus. And so I want to talk a little bit about that. Before I jump in on that, though, let me just say this point blank. There's nothing President Biden said, and no way that he said it, that for me personally was not more concerning or more offensive than the statement former President Trump made around immigrants taking, quote, black jobs. I hope that African-American people, black people all over the nation will join me in really parroting that statement. So I want to be the first. I'm James Gailliard, and I'm a pastor at Word Tabernacle Church, and I'm enjoying my black job. Like, I want us to, I'm a nurse, and I'm doing my black job. I'm a city councilman, and I'm doing, I would love to understand what job is this that he's talking about that is narrowly set aside for just black people. I was shocked. I wasn't shocked by the statement because it's just the kind of rhetoric that we're used to getting. And I thought it was very interesting that, we have to be careful not to eat our own. And let me just, be clear here. I've got some concerns about the president. But I'm going to lay out some things that I hope will begin taking into consideration. So let's just call it what it is. He's got some disjointed responses. I was really concerned about how dazed he looked. Just concerned about some of that. But this is what I want us to understand. What's so shocking to me is that there is such a uprising calling for the stepping down of Joe Biden, and not an equal uprising calling for the stepping down of Donald Trump. I mean, this is a man that debated for 90 minutes, gave a litany of lies, displayed hyperbole, displayed bigotry, fear-mongering, ignorance. He made it clear that he is an anti-democratic person. He does not want democracy. He made it clear that he's still unfit for the office. And it seems to me that if there's going to be this kind of movement about the stepping down of Joe Biden, there needs to be an equal movement around the stepping down of Donald Trump. So I want us to lean in on that a little bit, because I didn't hear and see a whole lot of that as I'm looking out on social media. You know, I don't know. I'm debating this thing. I don't think that what's the word I'm looking for? A competitive convention is going to be a bad idea for the Democrats. As a matter of fact, I think it could be a good idea. And so I don't know where I haven't had a chance to talk to delegates that are going, because most of them are already pledged to Joe Biden. And I haven't talked to any super delegates yet, but I plan on doing that. But I do think that having a convention that is competitive only shows that we are serious about bringing forth the best candidate. Because, be clear, the Republicans have a horrible candidate. If Joe Biden is or is not the Democratic candidate, I don't know that you can get a worse candidate than Donald Trump for the Republican Party. And I'm certain you can't get a worse candidate for the people of America, for the people of this nation, than Donald Trump. And so, I mean, you're talking about a man. This is where I want to go with this, y'all, because I'm still a body of work guy. You know, and I think about my own life, and I found myself grieving more over the response to the president's performance. I found myself grieving more over the response to his performance than I did over his performance. And that says a lot, because I'm grieving over his performance as he's having it. But then when everybody starts coming for him, I got to thinking about myself. Like, I got to thinking about, you know, I'm 59 years old. I can't dunk a basketball anymore, so my body doesn't do what it used to do. You know, every Sunday I kneel in prayer. I just like to lay prostrate before the Lord. And right now I'm still able to get up from that kneeling position without holding on to the ground. Like, I can just get myself up. My legs are still strong enough, but I get weaker and weaker doing it. So I know there's going to come a time when I can't do it. I sometimes pick up my cell phone and I'm like, why did I pick up my cell phone? I'm trying to remember who I was supposed to be texting, who I was supposed to be calling. And so I got to thinking about, being able to dunk a basketball, can't anymore. Don't even know that I can grab the net. And how emotionally and physically we are in deteriorating bodies. And evidence of that exists for Joe Biden. And there is this clarion call to, like, replace him. And I understand the concern, but I also want us to be gentle, to understand that, you know, our bodies begin failing us and our minds begin failing us. And I think we've got to think checkers, we have to think chess and not checkers. And so the question becomes, and this is where I'm jumping in for the audience today, the question becomes, who would be your choice to replace President Biden? I want you to understand something. Most of you who are listening to me have probably never run for public office. So I want to educate you on the complexity of it. Just getting out messaging and signs and building a team and getting a ground game. And raising money and tightening up your messaging and learning how to pivot and getting known by as many voters. It's very late. And I personally think too late for almost any other candidate. I am concerned, too, that the only Democrat that's ever beat him is Joe Biden. And don't hear me wrong. His debate performance was a disaster. His body of work is probably amongst the most impressive of any president to have ever held office. As a matter of fact, he's done more in 4 years than most presidents have done, or really 3, than most presidents have done in 8. And so I'm concerned about that issue. I've never personally been a big Kamala fan. But then the flip side of it is there's some elements to Kamala that I'm like, it's about time that our nation experience some of this. And in a little while, I'll share some of that. And I want to take your feedback on this. I want to hear, if you want to call in, go ahead and call in. But if you're on Facebook or YouTube, go ahead and give me your comments. But here's the issue I'm raising. And this is in addition to saying who would be your choice to be on the Democratic ballot at the top of the ballot for president. Secondly, though, I want to hear your thoughts on why you feel as if there has not been an equal call for Donald Trump to step down. And this is why I say this. We're calling out for President Biden to step down because we feel like he's cognitively impaired. We have evidence that he's having a hard time walking. He's clearly having a hard time focusing. He's clearly dazing. That's on one hand, right? I mean, that's the left hand, since that's Democrat. But on the right hand, we have a man who is narcissistic, who is a liar, who is a criminal, who is uncivil, who is misogynistic, who is narcissistic. And none of that caused that same group of people to say, hey, he needs to step down too. And so when we begin looking at the debate, here Trump is constantly building himself up, and he builds himself up by tearing the country down. That he literally believes that there's no shining city on the hill in this country. It's interesting. I remember making statements when I ran about the improvements needed in Rocky Mount, and the Republican Party they did ads against me saying I was anti-Rocky Mount. And yet I'm trying to represent Rocky Mountain General Assembly. But over and over again through the debate, Trump kept saying things like, we're in a failing country. He kept saying the United States is a third world nation. Has he ever been to a third world nation? The United States is a third world nation. He kept saying we're living in hell. He kept saying we're very close to World War III. This is a man who, he may state, people are dying all over the place. Which of these statements can we prove true? We're an uncivilized country now. They did a fact checker on him. 30 lies told during the debate alone. That same fact checker says that the time he was president, 4 years of presidency, that he told 30,000 lies that were recorded and documented. And yet there's nobody saying this man needs to step down. This man needs to not run. And that's my question to my viewers today. My question to all my listeners is, why is there no call for him also to step down? And then when you begin looking at the debate, Trump dodges the moderator's questions. He takes no responsibilities for his actions. He blames other people. He says the only thing wrong with this country is Biden's fault. His response to January 6th insurrection is that he says this is a relatively small number of people, and they were ushered in by the police in the Capitol. That's what he said. And so it's interesting to me how he attacks the military, how he denigrates Justice Department, how he denigrates judges, how he belittles the FBI, the CIA, how he's always being negative towards our allies, but yet when it comes to dictators like Putin, he cozies up to them. And here's a man that has done so much damage with so little accomplishments and very little dialogue from people saying he does not need to run. But a man with great results, but a knight with poor rhetoric, clear cognitive issues. We are championing the cause. Rah, 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 rah. He cannot run. He cannot run. It feels hypocritical, people. That it's almost to say, as long as you tell the truth, as long as you tell a lie, rather, like it's the truth, we're good. But listen to what I'm saying. As long as you tell a lie like it's the truth, we're good. But if you have a hard time stuttering to get your words out, but what you're saying is truthful, we don't want you. Where are my Bible readers? I'll find it at the break, but where are my Bible readers? And my Bible readers, wasn't it Moses who's just like, I can't talk. I'm stuttering. I can't get it out right. And he still got used. And again, I'm not suggesting that there is not major concern here. I'm not suggesting that we don't need a strategy. I'm not suggesting that we shouldn't have the conversation. But I am suggesting that you have two people on the debate stage. One, very honest, very truthful, with significant body of work, with policies that have been bipartisan, with accomplishments that have helped the middle class, that have advanced HBCU causes, that have help people with student loan debt, have created tremendous infrastructure that has improved the quality of people's lives, and another person over here who has done nothing but serve self. And because the person with a good body of work is struggling to articulate it, we would rather embrace the person with no body of work who says it convincing, although they're filled with lies, vile, and deceit. That feels like hypocrisy to me, listeners. And I want your feedback. I know y'all expected me to come on today and be like, hey, just pro, Biden and don't say anything about Trump. No, I want to call out both of them. And I want to give you some ideas about the next path forward for us. Well, this is James Gailliard. You're watching the James Gailliard Show. Today, we are talking about the debate. And I want your feedback on why you think people are not leaning in on Trump as heavily as Biden, and who you think would be a perfect selection if it came to that in a contested convention. We're going to pay some bills. Thanks for watching. Share this with some people. I'll be right back in a couple minutes.
The James Gailliard Show on Choice FM.
People, y'all are the best. I hope I can get to that story about the mandate of teaching Bible in public schools. I'm a gospel preacher. I love the Bible. It's my favorite book. There is a little concern for me, though, about the issue of us mandating it. And so it's but let me jump back into it, because I want to get to that story if I can potentially get to that story. Make sure I'm good here. I just pulled out my cord, I think. Did I pull out my cord? Make sure. Okay, I'm good. So let me kind of jump in. I've got some great feedback. I got distracted there for a second, y'all, so I apologize for that. But let me get some of these comments real quick, and then we'll jump in where we left off. Natasha, I'm a 27-year veteran educator, educational enrichment organization developer. I created my black job. For those of you who wondering where I'm going with this, I am addressing former President Trump's statement about immigrants taking black jobs. And many of us, I'm trying to find one black person who can tell me what that black job is. I see LaShawn Jenkins. He has a black job. It's called being a principal. But here's his comment. My concerns are the same as everyone else's, but they don't come close to the idea that a felon had the right or privilege to lead our nation. The Constitution has a congressional immunity clause for Congress members who commit crimes. It shouldn't be any different for the president. I agree, LaShawn. It's embarrassing at the thought that he could actually even compete for office. There is a legacy in the country that the Republican Party presidents always get a grace that Democratic counterparts don't. I agree. Reagan and Iran-Contra scandal should have been impeached. Dwight Eisenhower, Jim Crow, et cetera, goes on and on. Tahira, hey, I'm an ICU nurse. I enjoy my black job. Question, who are the names being groomed? So for those of you that are just joining in, go ahead and share this. I'm James Gailliard, listening to the James Gailliard Show. But I think Gavin Newsom, governor of Texas, of California, has been thrown out. Of course, the vice president. Kamala Harris, for me, raises some real interesting chess, some real interesting calculus. We have never had a woman president. She identifies as not only African American, but I believe Asian American. And so we have never had an Asian American president. I like the narrative of an HBCU alum being president. We've never had that. Generally, our presidents are Ivy League trained attorneys. She went to, I believe, law school in California, and not at Stanford, not at UCLA, I don't believe. And what's interesting about Kamala is her resume. I'm a body of work guy. She served 6-7 years as attorney general, and then a district attorney. Actually, she started out as district attorney in San Francisco. So 6 or 7 years as district attorney in San Francisco. Then from there, a district attorney for the state, and then of course to U.S. Senate, and from U.S. Senate to vice president. I mean that's Hey, listen, real talk, that's a pretty impressive political resume. I would love to see Kamala get some people to begin coaching her, and when she gives her speech, knock it out the park. So to answer your question, Natasha, I think those are some of the names. I want to say Governor of Josh Shapiro, Governor of Pennsylvania, is a name that I have heard. And I'm going to tell you this, some of you won't remember this, but back when there was speculation that Joe Biden would not run again, there was a short list of about, I'm going to say 10 names. And believe it or not, one of those 10 names was Roy Cooper. That's right, Roy Cooper. I mean, think about it. I don't know of a politician in the country with a better record of winning elections than Roy Cooper, and who has served as long. I'm talking about state rep. I mean, you name it, state rep, state senator, district attorney, attorney general, and then governor. And I mean, you know, he doesn't have a whole lot to do right now because he can't run again. That name came up a while back. Ruth Parker says there is no right choice at this time. And I think we have to fix that, Ruth. I don't disagree with you. I will say to you that, again, I'm going to keep leaning on this narrative. Concerned about the president's cognitive ability, but he has all the other right stuff in terms of his body of work and his ability to beat Donald Trump. Let me just shift for a minute before I go back to your comments and talk more about the debate and Donald Trump. When he was president, he did a lot to damage. He had very few accomplishments. He hyped things that never happened, like building a wall. He had no infrastructure created. All of the tax cuts were for rich people. And he literally fueled deficits for other people to pay. He has tremendous support for coal, oil drilling. He withdrew from the Paris Agreement. So he has made the impact of climate change much worse. All you got to do is walk around in this heat and know how bad the climate change issue is. He stacked the judiciary with extreme judges. And those judges consisted largely of white males. And a number of his judicial appointments were literally people who are potentially appointed for judges. They get a ranking by the American Bar Association, right? They get a ranking by their peers. When Donald Trump was president, he appointed people to be judges that were rated by the American Bar Association as not qualified. Not qualified. When you look at the number of people that were in his cabinet that were fired, the people that left office, the people who just had enough integrity to say, I can't work with this man. You probably don't remember, but the West Wing in constant chaos, constant fighting. And so, yes, President Joe Biden had a horrible debate night. He is 81. He is not nearly as sharp as he used to be or should be. But I'm going to tell you, this is just James Gailliard talking. I will take Joe Biden on his worst day before I ever take Donald Trump on his best day. I'm going to say that again. I will take Joe Biden on his worst day before I ever take Donald Trump on his best day. So this is what has to happen as we move forward. I'm going to go back to where y'all are chiming in. And let me just answer a question. We got a question on YouTube real quick. Delegate versus super delegate. I'll do a show on this, sis. My sister Joyce is out there. I'll do a show on this. Actually, I'm going to bring someone in from the Democratic National Committee, and we'll do a whole show on what happens at the convention. But you basically have delegates and super delegates. Your delegates they vote in block. So they're already committed to a candidate. So the overwhelming majority of these delegates are already committed to Joe Biden. And then you have a super delegate that is not committed to any candidate. And, they're automatic walk-ons on the floor, and, they can vote however they want to vote. But without moving some of the delegates, it's not enough super delegates to create a convention that's going to be competitive. And so it'll be interesting to see. I do think the Republicans should not dismiss it. I will say, though, I mean, somebody stepping up into the equation at this point is they would have to be ready to go. I will say this about Gavin Newsom. He's smart. He's articulate. He understands the issues. He's got a good look about him. All those things that people care about. I mean, we can act like that stuff's not important, but it's important. So anyway, back to President Biden. So when you look at the difference between Biden and Trump, you know, Biden has a real substantive record of accomplishment. I mean, just the way he fought the pandemic, the way he's dealt with climate change, the way he's invested in infrastructure, the way he supported vulnerable and working families, the way he's surrounded himself with people that actually know what they're doing and people who take public policy seriously, how he has been able to get bipartisan legislation across the finish line, and probably what is the most dysfunctional Republican House majority in history. Hear what I just said, because I've been in this, I can tell you, I've been in this on the state side. I can tell you how hard this is. We have a president running for re-election that has been able to get bipartisan, not just bipartisan, significant bipartisan legislation passed with the most dysfunctional Republican House majority in history. And so, you know, I have to lean in on President Biden on this, although I do think there are some possibilities, because I do think there's one scenario we don't talk about. All of the data suggests, y'all know I'm a data guy on the James Gailliard Show. All of the data suggests that by and large, the American people would rather not have either candidate. Now, tell me what y'all think about this. The American people say, look, we really wish neither one of them was running. So my theory is, if the American people feel like we'd rather not have either one of them run, the party that can get their candidate replaced first is the party that's likely to win the election. The risk, though, is greater on the Democrats. The risk is greater because Trump can't prove that he can beat Biden, but Biden can prove that he can beat Trump. So because we have a candidate that can prove that he can beat Trump, do we want to roll the dice and replace him? On the other hand, since people are saying we'd rather have someone else, if we give them someone else, could it be a candidate strong enough? And since Kamala Harris is the VP, do you honestly think, I want y'all to answer this question, and I'm going to look at some of your responses and start talking about what y'all talking about. Do you think America has the Constitution, the will, and the stomach to elect a black female president? That's my question. Because, and I want to talk to sisters in North Carolina. You know why I want to talk to sisters in North Carolina? I'm glad y'all asked, sisters in North Carolina. I want to talk to sisters in North Carolina because when you had a black, well-qualified, I might add, black female at the top of the ballot running for U.S. Senate in the person of Sherry Beasley, y'all voted in the smallest numbers in history. Black women stayed home when another black woman was at the top of the ballot in North Carolina. So my question to you is, do you really think the United States of America has the heart, the will, the Constitution, the desire to elect a black female president? Do you think it would be the response we got when it was Barack Obama? Who was the politician who said, I will never turn my back on Biden? I need to research him. The one who said, I will never, Natasha, I just read that. He is U.S. Senator from Delaware. That's what I'm going with. Name escapes me. Natasha, Google that. The U.S. Senator from Delaware, I believe it was, which to me kind of makes sense because Biden is from Delaware. Try that. I think that's who said it. Kamala Harris or Bernie Sanders. Diana, not Bernie Sanders. He just as old as everybody else. And the problem with Bernie Sanders, in my opinion, is he's too left. We do not need, the problem with Trump is he's too far right. I mean, look, I might make people's skin crawl, but if you give me a moderate candidate, a legitimately moderate candidate, whether they Dem or Republican, I'll vote for them. The problem is I don't know of any Republican people running that are moderate because their base has gone so far right. Where with Democrats, we do have a left group, but it's not our base. I think our base is still more moderate. So the concern I've got with Bernie Sanders is he old and he's too far left. And look, that raises a whole nother issue around term limits. Where are y'all on term limits? I hate when I hear this. I hear from people that say, well, we have term limits. It's called elections. Oh, I hate that. The reason I don't like when people say that, and by the way, for the most part, you only hear politicians say that. Voting people don't think like that. Here's the reason I say I don't like it that people say we do have term limits and it's called voting. It's called elections. The reason I don't like that is because if the people in office gerrymander their seats, then the election doesn't really matter because they've already cheated to win. If we have term limits, then at least they only get to cheat so many times. But the way our system is set up now, they can cheat to win for 30 years. So I do think that, like in North Carolina, you age out of the bench. That means that when I say the bench, I mean sitting judge. You age out of the bench at 72. I think that's a little young. I do. Of course, I'm feeling that way because I'm getting older, right? But that's like 13 years from now for me, which is hard to believe. And I don't know what 13 years is going to bring, but I'm hoping in 13 years, my body and my mind is going to be pretty sharp. I mean, we have a member of our church, Judge Tony Brown, who's coming up on 72. And I just saw him in church on Father's Day. I mean, he's sharp, he's strong, he's healthy, getting around, still works out on his farm. His mind is brilliant. So I do think 72 is too young, but I do think maybe when you get 80, at that point, I think, you should be bowing out. His political friendship and ties with Putin, I agree. I need my knowledgeable political brains to enlighten me. There has not been an equal call because we live in a country that has made racism great again. You hear that, right? Racism. We need to bring you on the show, LaShawn. We've normalized his actions. You're right. He's talking about Trump. He operates from emotional immaturity and not emotional intelligence. People want a leader who want call out of their mess. If you're a mess, as in Trump's case, how can you regulate it? He is the immoral, unethical poster child of society. Agreed. Cynthia, he also was saying that Nancy Pelosi was or took the blame for January 6th. That's correct. So you're hearing all the lies, right? Trump has a lot of supporters and money backing him, so is cocky because of that. Shaking my head. Yep. Thank y'all for all of this, all this feedback. President Biden's record of accomplishment, especially in the interests of people of color and middle class and even poor folk, need to be publicized and amplified. I totally agree. It does. Granting Trump immunity has only padded his mockery of trumping over and rearranging the policies of the government. You are so right. You are so right. I could not agree with you more. Do you think Cory Booker, he has lost his savor? I like Cory Booker. And Cory Booker is smart. And I think I like Cory Booker. I like Hakeem Jeffries. I think we have some brilliant men in the Congress. Whether or not it plays out in their favor, I don't know. And somebody just said Hakeem Jeffries or Kamala, no other right choice than Biden. Yeah, and so I want us to understand what's at stake, family. I want us to understand. Say that again. I'm not sure what I'm saying again, but I vote for Donald Duck before Donald Trump. I hear you. Biden is in his casket and his name is still at the top of the ticket. I vote for Biden over Trump always. Yeah, I mean, it is what it is. And so I just wanted to lay that out. I want to have a conversation about that. We need to do like that football movie and let a regular Joe run on the field. Kendrick or Sharon, I'm not sure which one, but I'll just say Revis says that they think Kamala could win. I like to think so, but I just don't know that we would show up like we need to show up. I can tell you, and we would need, of course, we're only a small percentage of the voter base, and so we would need a whole lot of white people also voting. The proof Is his supporters the question? How do we strengthen the supporter bank? And I think that's a great question. And I think part of the way we do that is by shows like this. I want you to share it. Not that I'm a pundit, right? I'm just one guy for 1 hour a week trying to have conversation with people, trying to raise this with people. Annette says, I do think America has the stomach to elect a black female president. Okay. From one woman speaking about another woman. I would love to see that be the case. You know, the Lord has a way of working all things together for his good, right? And so what I do know is I am a never Trumper, is what I am. I want to be honest with that. And only because I fear democracy in the future for our children. You know, I'm not like many of you. Many of you are, my age or younger, but you didn't really personally grow up experiencing segregation. But I did. I grew up in it in the community I lived in. I grew up in it in the schools that I attended. And I can tell you it is a really difficult, hard life. And I don't want that for my children. I don't want that for my grandchildren. And that's the reason I will never vote for Donald Trump. And I'm disheartened to know that I live in a city with so many people that would. I was traveling this week and we were in See what I tell y'all about Biden? That just happened to me. Like, my mind, I know what I'm trying to say, and it's not all coming together for me. Lexington, Kentucky. We're in Lexington, Kentucky, outdoor event, and a guy has on a shirt, and it says something like, vote felon. Vote felon. It literally says, vote felon, and then under it, Trump 2024. That's the kind of society we live in. But I bet you that same person with a vote felon Trump 2024 shirt on has also refused to ban the box on an application that asks the question, are you a felon? I mean, you're talking about the hypocrisy of a party, the hypocrisy of people. That you will run, you run a company that you won't hire a felon, but you'll elect one as president of these United States. That is the hypocrisy that also it's usually grounded in either racism or materialism. And that's usually the two motivations. The people that generally vote for Donald Trump, I'm about to really put myself out on the limb. The people who generally vote for Donald Trump are motivated by either materialism or racism. That is generally the motivation. Now, I'm not saying there aren't a few exceptions, but I think there are very few exceptions. I want more of this, money, 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 or deep down inside, I like the rhetoric that will make a class of people, a group of people, a race of people feel less than. So I can feel more than, and I'm going to vote for anybody that's going to make me feel that way. This is James Gailliard. You are listening, watching the James Gailliard Show. We are talking the debate. We are talking the debate today, and should Trump step down? Should Biden step down? Who will be the next best choice? What does that process look like? What say you? We're going to take a commercial break. We'll be right back. Share this.
The James Gailliard Show on Choice FM.
Man, I love this engagement. Would y'all like me to do this more than an hour a week? I've been trying to grapple with the best way to do this, the best path forward, the way I get to do it with my schedule. I mean, it's something I'm enjoying. I feel like it's needed, necessary. Would love to get your feedback about that. And just as a reminder, when you're on YouTube, you're on Facebook with me, there's a little bit of a delay. And so I don't know what that delay is. I'm going to say it's probably about 2 minutes, maybe even 3. So if you make a comment and I don't chime in, I don't say anything, I don't respond to it, it's not because I'm ignoring you. It's just because I've already cycled off the show. And so if you're not making your comments by maybe about 5:57 p.m. or so, I'm probably not going to be able to see it. Okay. So I just wanted to put that out there. And so what is everyone saying? Glenn Mitchell, I don't think we are there right now. I've been screaming actions without words. Natasha said Newsom. Yep. Hillary Clinton. I think Hillary's officially done. I think she's officially out of the game. I think Biden at this point is still our best hope, but everybody's going to have to get in the game this time, hands on, hearts and everybody. Yeah, I mean, I do think that we've got to work so that, we're all in, guys. Whatever we're going to do, we've got to be all in. There should definitely be limits. So true about gerrymandering. How about age limits in Congress? So, yeah, I think any public service should have age limits. I mean, think about it for a minute. I mean, would you really, honestly, real talk, real talk, would you really want a surgeon, 83, 84, 85 years old, cutting on your heart? I mean, I wouldn't. And I view it the same way. We assume that the only place malpractice can happen is in a physician's office. And the reality of it is malpractice happens on the Supreme Court. Malpractice happens in the General Assembly. It happens in Congress. It happens on the West Wing. It happens in churches and in pulpits. And so at some point, we have to age out. And we've got to own that, and we've got to accept that. And so I am a big proponent of term limits. I'm a big proponent, if not term limits, aging out. And I think it's really a combination of the two. I mean, if you get in office really, really early, because people have ideas. They have ways of thinking that are formed by how they were raised, how they came up. And it's hard to shake that. And I think term limits and aging out are some of the methods that help us to do that. We definitely need term limits, and so we have good potential candidates. So this question is, how do we get our black women and apathetic voters as strong and low as Trump's? I think we have to keep doing what we're doing right now, talking the issues. We have to use our spheres of influence. We have to write op-eds. We have to post. We have to follow certain people. We have to weigh in. We have to get off the finish line and stop being afraid. I think I said this in last week's show, and I'm going to say it again. We can't be afraid of losing our social networks for being right. I can't begin to tell you, 2016, matter of fact, we were out this past week. This was while we were in Fishers, Indiana, right outside of Indianapolis, Indiana. And a white pastor was with us, and he told the story of pastoring a multicultural church in the D.C. area in 2016. It was before 2016, but when 2016 came, with everything going on with Donald Trump, his church literally divided over social justice issues and conservative evangelical issues, to the point where what was once a healthy multicultural church literally was destroyed. And I can tell you from firsthand experiences that I had some very close personal relationships with people that were Southern Baptists, with people that are white, with people that were conservative evangelicals, people that a pastor in this community that I was helpful to help him form his church and very supportive of him. And I've watched over the years people really, really divide and people not be nearly as close because of people's position on Donald Trump. And I think what we have to be willing to do, and this is my point on how do we get people engaged to this level, we are going to have to be willing to potentially sacrifice some social capital. There's going to be some parties I'm no longer going to be invited to. There's going to be some people that are no longer willing to help me. There's going to be some people that I've historically been close to and accustomed to being with that I'm not going to be able to be with anymore because they're not going to be able to handle my position on political matters. There's too much at stake for us to be silent and for us to act like we don't. Listen to me, I'm almost out of time, but you have voice. You have influence. You have the ability to sway this election. You have that much power. I want to encourage you to use the power you have. Educate yourself. Learn the data. Challenge the data. Debate the data. Land on truth. And then be willing to articulate that truth you land on. I'm asking everyone who's listening, everyone who watches me to please do that. And so we're running out of time. Next week, I want to talk to you about the Oklahoma State schools. And I want to talk to you about the decision that their superintendent, Ryan Waters, who sent out a letter to the state school districts this past Thursday as well. This is the same day as the debate. There was a lot going on last week ordering them to incorporate the Bible, quote, as an instructional support into the curriculum, unquote, for grades 5 through 12, citing its importance as a historical, so citing the importance of the Bible as a historical document. I don't have time to discuss this on today's show, but I want to hear your thoughts on that, so I want to lay that out. Again, this is Oklahoma State School Superintendent Ryan Waters. So educate yourself on that a little bit, and then when we come back next week, we'll talk about it. I think more racism than materialism. Shocks me of the people that always use Jesus' name, but look over the racism that Trump continues to broadcast. Yep, the hypocrisy is what's killing me. So look, y'all, we're all on the same page here. Let's work together. Let's talk about this. Share this with people that you think might need it. They don't have to agree with me. I want people that don't agree with me. Because I want to be sharpened by everyone's thoughts. I want to honor everyone's perspectives. But at the end of the day, I want us to make decisions that are not emotionally based, but data based. So in every show, I try to simply lay out facts, not facts as James Gailliard knows them, but facts as they exist. And then I ask you to make decisions based upon those facts. And that's what we do every week on the James Gailliard Show. I hope you'll tune in next week. I'm James Gailliard. This is the James Gailliard Show. I'm out of clock, but I'm not out of content. I'm out of time, but I'm not out of talk. I'll be back with you next week right here on Choice 92.1 FM. I'm out. You have a great day.
The James Gailliard Show on Choice FM.